Well, hello everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, the latest edition in Intelligent Insurers data series. Thank you all for joining us. I want to say a special thank you, first of all, to our speakers and moderators today, who'll be introduced shortly. My name's Alex Hackett from Intelligent Insurer, and it's been a real pleasure collaborating with Safety National, AXA and EdgeVerve to develop today's content. EdgeVerve is a global leader in AI, automation, and analytics. Their technology empowers enterprises globally to bring life to their digital transformation initiatives. And they don't just build groundbreaking products, they also build technology that will unlock hidden business value from your business processes, documents, and supply chain. Please do submit any questions you have for any of our speakers, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. Now, without further ado, I want to introduce you to our moderator for today, Robin Roberson, who's a senior AI and cyber consultant at Future Point of View. We're delighted to be working with her. She's a great moderator. Robin, thanks so much for taking the reins today. I'm really looking forward to what promises to be a very interesting discussion. So over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alex. It's obviously an honor and a passion of mine to talk about this topic. And it, of course, especially during now, it's an exciting time to be in any industry, but especially I think in insurance, because we all have the ability to influence these internal and external processes and outcomes. So I'd love to introduce the panel, and then I will ask them to please kind of give a quick self-introduction, and we'll get started. Again, please submit your questions. It's very important that we are providing relevant content to you that's helpful with your day-to-day decisions and your future decisions. So with me, we have Dorji Dundikoff. He's the division lead of data science, a platform for AXA XL. Bill Wilkins, SVP, Advanced Analytics and Practical Applications for Safety National. Madhur Naidu, Senior Technical Manager for EdgeVerve, and thanks again for helping support and sponsor this specific webinar. So I'd like to hear a little bit more from each of you real quickly, just a self-introduction. So we'll start with you, Dorji.
Hi, everyone. So I'm a division lead for data science platforms at XXL, which is a part of the AXA group. At XXL, I look after data science platforms and data platforms in a variety of technical aspects of the machine learning, data, and AI applications.
Great. Bill?
I've been in the insurance industry for just about 40 years now, with a range of operational, IT, actuarial, and predictive analytics roles, and currently look to do what we can to improve Safety National's technology positions.
Fantastic. Madhur?
Yeah, so I am with EdgeVerve. We just turned 10 years recently. I've been with the mothership for overall around 20 years plus. I've been working as a product solution consultant in the AI and automation space for the last couple of years. And typically in the current role, I help envisage a lot of our insurance, reinsurance clients traverse through their digitization and document digitization kind of journeys as such, typically looking into the North America market as such. Happy to be part of the conversation and share our experience.
I love it. Part of the mothership, which works out perfectly with our discussion today. And then before we dive in, I just wanted to make sure that the audience is aware of the different types of AIs. We're going to be focusing on Gen AI, but there are other types of AIs for you to explore. You have analytic, diagnostic, predictive, prescriptive, kind of simulation. And again, what we're going to be focusing on today is the generative, more of that AI human collaboration where we can really collaborate with the machine and make it real, right? So Gen AI really amplifies our abilities to create, invent, solve, communicate. And so this is the one that we'll be elaborating on as it's more practical for this, discussion. Let's talk a little bit about the general overview of like the stage or the understanding of the current state of insurance industry with the hype around Gen AI. I know we had a great prep call. So if you could kind of tell everyone kind of what you're seeing, we'll start with you, Madhur, on like what everyone is expecting Gen AI to be doing, and then we'll kind of go to each panelist.
Sure, thanks. So let me start off with just back up with the saying, right? So it is definitely not a hype. People have now got a taste of what Gen AI can do. Typically in the insurance world, they are slow movers, but then they are getting to understand that where they can amplify the potential of what they are doing today, right? Typically in the underwriting operations and the reinsurance operations as such. And what we are seeing is obviously they are still in the proof of concept of proof of technology stage. They still want to understand what exactly will work for them. People are not doing too much of a deep dive and too much of a it's a cost effective way of looking at things. What we are also seeing is traditionally some of the challenges which were not being resolved by some of the AI techniques which were available. Thanks to the onset of Gen AI, we are seeing that, okay, there are certain use cases in the insurance. Typically, when you are let's say searching or talking to these documents, get the data and data out from these documents. So this is being made possible with the onset of Gen AI capabilities what we have today. So that's in a nutshell with my experience of last 1.5 years of Gen AI.
Great. Yeah. And it, really talking about the pros and cons too, as we move forward. Dorshi, on what do you think about what Gen AI kind of gives us, part of that universal interface? Like, can you kind of talk through it from your perspective?
Yeah, as I will echo what Madhu said, right? So there's quite a lot of excitement for obvious reasons about Gen AI, but my personal perspective is that a lot of the excitement is absolutely justified, right? So Gen AI is an interesting technology, and it fits well into the world of insurance, right? So because in insurance, there is quite a lot of interaction and quite a lot of documentation that happens inherently in an unstructured format in natural language. And coincidentally, Gen AI deals with this really well and really powerfully, right? So there's quite a lot of the interesting applications of Gen AI technology when you consider your problem holistically, of course, right? So, but once you have considered your problem holistically, there's interesting applications of Gen AI technology across the value chain, from operations to underwriting. So there's quite a lot of excitement for it.
Yeah. And Bill, from your point of view?
Well, I actually think of Gen AI as, because of the spectrum that insurance has, right? It's kind of like the difference between going to a McDonald's and going to a sit-down restaurant. The McDonald's uses the Gen AI when you pull up to the drive-through and can do your orders. But for the large commercial insurers with the more complicated situations, it's a different perspective. And the industry is so broad in terms of company size, different use cases. It will be an effective tool. More and more people are getting into it. So there are some large companies who actually have been using it for a bit, but they don't talk about it as much because they're effectively using it as a competitive advantage. So, I think eventually it will be ubiquitous, but it's really, really use case specific.
Yeah, and I know previously when we were talking, we were really we touched on the point, like Gen AI really lets the team who's running it at 30,000 feet, right, get answers more quickly, which is why the prompt engineers need to be so well trained. So I want to really touch on, as we're going through this, what does the skill set and the team need to look like at the organizations as well. And Dorshi, when we were talking earlier, we had talked a little bit about Gen AI amplifying the way to extract specific data. Can you give us a few examples of how you're doing that, or who are you providing that additional data to? For instance, is it to actuaries, underwriters? How is that being done today?
Without speaking about XXL specifically, of course, right? So we can think of ways that we can employ Gen AI technology, right? As Madhu said, in insurance generally, right? So we have a lot of long-standing issues, right? So that have been previously addressed using a variety of tooling from NLP to ML, right? And GenAI is just the biggest hammer in your workshop today, right? And you can employ this hammer productively if you know how to hold the hammer very well, right? So, and speaking about one of the biggest applications that I see personally today, one of the biggest applications that before us, right, is the use the Gen AI as this universal connector to your unstructured data, right? So before you had to train specific keyword extraction, specific NLP routines, specific ML models, right, to generate your like entity recognition, a key value pair generation from your documents, parsing your document, and so on, right? Today, Gen AI can do this for you. In many cases, can do it for you reliably enough and cheaply enough for you to genuinely consider this for operational use cases in these examples, right? So when you have big unstructured documents, it flows through through the parsing pipeline, right? And one of the steps is Gen AI, so which is very versatile. It is available off the shelf, and if you use it correctly, it's available cheaply as well. So you can use it to skip quite a lot of custom development, and that adjusts the business case behind this operation. In the end, you will receive better data. You will get better insight into your unstructured documents and unstructured in your document universe, and that will power a variety of applications across the organization.
Fantastic. Great insight. Thank you. And just a quick reminder to please submit some questions for us. We have some amazing experience here, and I would love for you to leverage their knowledge today to help you with anything that you're working on or questions you may have. So one of the things, let's move on to how enterprises, I mean, I feel like to your point earlier, Madhur, that it's not really hype anymore, right? There are a lot of different solutions out there, and people are just getting sprayed with all types of like, here's this solution, here's this type of service, here's this, application. And what are what would be of the top focus areas for enterprises when it comes to implementing Gen AI? I know it's, once they've made the decision on, hey, let's go in this direction, what are some ways or areas they should really focus on when looking to implement? Because I know, if you're looking at an area that needs to be optimized or improved, how do you establish and identify the why? Can you kind of talk through from your point of view, what are some things to look for?
Sure. I'll take a leaf out of Will's book. So as he mentioned, right, so the use case. So the definition of a use case is very important. What do you call a use case, right? And when we define the use case, the very important parameter is basically what is the return on investment if I implement this, right? Whether I'm using AI or Gen AI, it's a secondary. But then if for my operations or for my business processes which I support, what is the use case which I want to, let's say, further build upon or optimize? And then what is the ROI? Because when we get into the solutioning, right, so Gen AI capabilities are good, but they are not cheap, right? So the ROI also becomes a very important factor. And then the feasibility of the once the viability is let's say established, then the feasibility of the solution. And a lot of our enterprises, the data resides in silos. So you have data residing in your policy admin systems, core admin systems, your treaty systems, contract systems, and all. And then you have data in your analytical system, BI systems, which have been already there for almost 2 decades now, right? So how to basically get the context of a particular case and then see how we can stitch together this data sitting in silos and then implement your Gen AI or your search or as Dorothy was talking about, some of the other capabilities to basically retrieve the data, right? So that is the second important aspect. And as you mentioned, right, so prompt, when you get into the Gen AI kind of implementation, prompt engineering is again a kind of a very important skill set, right? And today, I guess English is the most important coding language when it comes to prompt engineering, right? That has become the most important coding language now, right? So how to then into the solution space when you get into, right? So we need to understand the domain more, and that's where the importance of will kind of now portfolios who is managing, right? So they become one of the core feeder to these prompts, because unless you understand the domain, you exactly don't know what to ask the system. and it's as easy as saying that it is junk in, junk out, right? If your prompts are not correct, you will not get the right answer, right? And then people are then trying to run around the bush explaining why it is not working and all, right? So the prompt engineering is very important aspect. And then how to call these large language models, right? So can I just throw everything at the large language model? No. So as Dorzi mentioned, we need to make sure that we have some kind of a structured approach, right? So we need to make sure that there are certain ontologies, there are certain techniques which we use to make sure we refine the prompts. We do some kind of vectorization. I'm not getting too technical, but we use certain techniques to make sure that we just don't overload these LLMs. Otherwise, it will not work as such, right? So that's where I'll summarize the answer. So first we need to look at the viability, then you get into the feasibility, and then you get into the solution space of the overall engineering and implementation as such.
Very good, very good. And then actually this ties into, we have a couple of questions and I'll circle back around, but I kind of want to hear from Bill on this as well, because you're in 47 different countries, right? And when you're trying to do something unified, it takes a lot of focusing. How do you kind of manage that when you're looking to really implement something like this?
Well, everything needs to be tied back with your data strategy and how you as an organization want to put the data together, right? And what to me, one of the biggest benefits of Gen AI will be the ability for someone in Tokyo to ask the same question as somebody in the United States, as somebody in India, as somebody in the Soviet Union, and then get the same response. And the models are progressing at such a pace. Prompt engineering is currently the hot skill, but the computer is moving fast enough that the whole natural language, regardless of the language you ask, is going to be a unifying system. But being an old time data scientist, 90% of the effort is in your data strategy and your data composition, and so you're still going to need the brilliant data architects, right? And the platform engineers to go along with the prompt engineers to make it all work seamlessly for those folks. And that, to me, that's going to be the key moving forward, is those skills. And this is on the Gen AI, because you're still going to need the traditional AI skills, because sometimes the questions are going to be, what's the trend looking like here? Gen AI can understand the question, but it's going to have to go out to the old school AI to get the answer.
I love that. That's something, to your point, people really need to focus on, right? It's making sure you have that right infrastructure to be able to carry everything out and in the right strategy. I love that. And Dorji, when we talked about this previously, you had a great point, and it was more of, Gen AI as a single item really doesn't need to, it's not really worthy of standing alone, right? It's part of that toolbox or that tooling landscape. Could you kind of expand a little bit on that? Like, how do people remain realistic about implementing Gen AI?
Absolutely, right? So people get overly excited about Gen AI because they've been using in their personal lives, perhaps the ChatGPT, and they've been blown away, right, by how capable that chat is, right? In the situation of enterprise, right, in enterprise high scale data processing, for example, or decisioning, right? So Gen AI becomes just a tool, right, in a relatively wide array of tools, right, so that you have at your disposal, right, so to generate the outcome that you would like to have as an enterprise. For example, your outcome could be data integration, right? So, and you want to integrate your unstructured data with some of the structured data that you have with your data warehouse, right? So you can employ Gen AI flexibly in a variety of scenarios to generate to conform it to a data schema, and make it kind of seamless between the existing data in your, for example, data warehouse, in the data that you have in your documents, so you can generate insights on combination, right? So in this insight can be for use for decision making, for good old BI, for AI, whatever you have, and even for regulatory and risk, right? So whatever you have on mind, however your organization uses data, so Gen AI can give you kind of this additional flexibility, right? So to like this flexible, powerful interface to your unstructured data to extract the data that you do want from your documents, right? In this, and then it flows back into the data strategy, and it flows back into the existing kind of data normalization routines, data warehousing that you already have, and you have a better data as a result. So this may not be as flashy, right? As blowing away ChatGPT, right? So, but it is real value, and it is here, right? And you can employ this very well today. And of course, with more structured, with more powerful interface to the unstructured data, you can start thinking about what else I can do, right? And you can do more interesting end user facing applications. For example, when you business user uses particular outcomes, right? For example, they are working on a document. I can read the document for them and make suggestions. Do we have a risk? Yes, we have always a risk, right? So that people will start abusing it. So the moment Gen AI is doing somebody's work, right, they say, okay, I'm going to switch off my brain now, right? Because because this has already been done. They click accept, 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 right? And in the end, you have a risk event, right? So this is a real risk, right? And we need to kind of from the solution design perspective, right, and from the risk perspective, we need to have a holistic approach that uses the advantages of Gen AI, but also the inherent risks that Gen AI has.
Yes, I love that. And that actually ties into a question I'm going to come back to you with. But right now I'm going to go back to Mater. So we were talking a little bit. We have a question. It's currently a topic I'm interested in, deals with bias in these AI models. Have any of you run into bias? If yes, how did you handle it? And are there ways to effectively test for bias in your Gen AI? And Mater, you were talking a little bit when we were, on the implementation piece about where the data is accessed, shared, and stored, right? But let's move forward to more of the execution where the responsible AI kind of sits. How do you prevent hallucinations, et cetera, and tie it into that question, please?
Yes, yes. So, in fact, that is one of the very key asks which all our enterprise and data architects are asking when we are building a solution where they want to understand when that particular response is coming from a hallucinated point of view, or how to can avoid hallucination or reduce hallucination, right? So, when we do a double click into prompt engineering, basically there are different ways you need to make sure that you are getting the prompts right. It's more of a trial and error when you start doing the prompts. So there are different patterns which are available for prompt engineering, right? So like if in the previous, let's say, good old object oriented programming days, we had a lot of design patterns, right? So I can draw an analogy from there. So like similarly in that case, we had to make use of, let's say, a factory pattern or a facade pattern to make sure that we understand what we are going to get from the object, right? So similarly here, we need to now have some kind of a strategy to understand what are the different types of prompts patterns which are available. So you could use some kind of a end shop prompting or a reverse prompting mechanism, or some kind of a composite prompting or a chain of prompting, right? So it depends on what will work for you in context of what you are looking to retrieve from the LLM as such, right? So that is one part. Then you need to the LLMs are also evolving, right? So every 6 months you have a new version of LLM coming, which is, again, there's a huge difference between the previous and the new version. So now you need to understand how you can make that LLM behave in a very certain way. So we call them as system prompts, wherein you actually tell LLM that, okay, you are an expert in so and so topic or a subject, and now you start answering questions. So how you can make sure that you enter these details as part of your system prompts, right? Now, once this part of the prompts are taken care of, then you need to start getting into, oh, so do I need, so is this question a simple question which I'm asking the particular LLM, or it is some kind of a analytics or BI kind of a question which will mention, right? So I need to get a pattern, right? So if there's a pattern, then I need to train some of those model tuning parameters and then see what works best for me. And then I need to basically have some kind of a indexing or vectorization to be done, just to make sure I'm not sending all the chunks to the LLM, right? Because that cost effectiveness is also coming into question. So all of these methods are important to understand what takes to make sure that the prompts are proper, and then the model is not hallucinating, right? And now, thanks to the you can say the kind of responses which the LLMs are giving. So it's a very good way of actually looking at whether the model is hallucinating or not. So now you have measures or scores which are available where you can say that, okay, what are the different types of scores which are there. So if there is a context on which you are asking a question and there is an answer provided by the model, so that score is available, that is called as a groundedness score, right? Then we get into the next, which is like a question which is asked and the answer which is getting provided, right? So if I ask a question about soccer and let's say Messi or Ronaldo is mentioned, then you know that, okay, the answer is more or less correct, right? And then the context and the question, right? So if the context is soccer, what kind of questions they can ask, right? So these are the kind of scores which are available to you as a prompt engineer. So that combined together with some of the orchestration capabilities for these platforms to manage these prompts, the versions of prompts and all these different types of patterns and all, that basically takes the front seat in designing your whole solution, right? Because that is the crux of it, right? And then you how you basically prompt rather question or query the LLMs as such, right? So those two aspects basically are very key aspect for any data architect or any of these solution architects which are being asked how to make sure that we don't hallucinate too much as part of the LLM response as such. Maybe a
Very
bit
good.
technical. Hope I answered the question.
Yes, thank you. I think that's very helpful. We have another question, and I'll start. Dorji, you had kind of mentioned a use case, so I'll go to you and then Bill. But can Gen AI be used to optimize business processes? So if you could share a few more, the answers are yes. If you could kind of give a few more examples, that would be fantastic. And I'll move on to another question.
Yeah, the answer is most definitely yes, right? You can take any business process in your organization, right? So that involves natural language and interaction between individuals in natural language, right? Or not necessarily even natural language, but any unstructured data. Let's say that we receive a demand from broker, all right? So the broker sends a demand, which is essentially a bunch of files, right? So there is a very long PDF file, there is an Excel file attached to it, there is some additional information in an email, right? It takes a very dedicated, a very educated person a long time to read what's inside the email. How about, right? So we give them an assistant, right? That that will not make any decisions for the person, right? So but will pre-parse the important information in the documents, right? So to present them a quick file, right? For reading. So that will be saving of quite a lot of time, right? And that is one of the thousands of typical use cases that comes to mind.
Absolutely. Bill?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a combination of that and the regular AI, but it's definitely, we're using versions of that today to help streamline the process and take the mundane out, so the people whose skill should be used looking at the harder problem are looking at the harder problem, right? You want to take the human out of the loop as much as possible for things that the computer can do better. And so there's lots of efficiency gains, whether it's natural language, because quite frankly, if you want to do intelligence, right, and you can scan forms, thousands and thousands of forms in the industry, bring it in and have the machine do the comparisons for you to give you a nice array, that's going to save significant amount of time and effort. So it is a very useful tool from that aspect.
Yes, I love that. And like you said, parsing information earlier. I know, Alex, when we were in New York City, we were talking about nuclear verdicts. There was a fantastic use case for this where the claim handlers would go through, files and files, but being able to pull out the important information that needs to, there needs to be a prompt where it goes to a more senior decision maker. Those are the things that really help speed up efficiency. So great question. Thanks for the answers. And I'm going to go on to the next question. Thank you for all the questions. Please keep them coming. They're fantastic. Bill, I'm going to start with you on this one. Changing habits and work trends is one of the toughest things to do. After implementing AI into your organization, what do you believe is the best way to make sure that it's utilized in day-to-day processes by the end user?
Well, first is reinforcement that, we're not taking away your job, right? There used to be an old phrase back in the 80s and the 90s, we're here from home office to help, right? But all the people in the branches were like, oh my God, it's going to be an annoyance. Well, that's the same thing with here. You're changing people's lives and processes that they've held on to for a long time. And so what you have to do is slowly. You should never expect, a 30-day or 60-day implementation of this. It takes 12 to 18 months to fully embrace that. My old team used to call me the Walter White of analytics, because I give people a little bit of a taste on how their life can be better. And as they start liking those tastes, they come back and they want more. And the idea is getting them to want what you're doing. And it makes the transition very seamless, very easy, because all of a sudden it comes from something that's replacing them to something that's helping them.
Yep. Dorothy, anything to add to that?
I absolutely second this. Really, so the danger is to trigger the kind of fight or flight response to change, right? So you should avoid this as much as possible, right? So through the correct engagement, right? So if you engage correctly, if you engage upfront, right? Most people would be open to change, right? So in of course the dedicated change management, right? So that is thoughtful, that recognizes the value that the staff brings, that recognizes the difficulty and peculiarity of the process that they manage, right? So that's really important, right?
And I would like to add on, you need to have an education plan in place. You're changing what people have done for a long time. And so what you're going to be doing is highlighting other things, and you need to give them the preparation for it.
Nice.
Education is the key to almost everything.
Yep, I agree. And you have to have that education so that there's that engagement by the end user, so they're comfortable with it as well, and what are the benefits. So great call out. Nadur, anything else that you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I just give a different flavor to what Will and Dorsey already mentioned. So education, or rather training, is very important to the end user. We need to make sure that we bring them early into the cycle, get their feedback, because it's a change management for them. So we want to make sure that we should soft land this change as much as possible. Otherwise, it will be a failure, because a lot of these transformations, most of them, they don't meet their objectives, right? So the idea is to make sure that we are bringing in the user during the early part of the implementation, get the feedback, see how we can make their life easier, right? So that there are certain best practices, and as Georgie mentioned, there has to be a change management board which should take care of some of these best practices, actually.
Yep, very good. Okay, Madura, the next question, I'm going to start with you. We have from the audience: without realizing the ROI, how can enterprise implement Gen AI across the value chain? So how is it, being able to understanding ROI?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. So you have to see whether you are either impacting the business or you are impacting the IT or the internal operations as such, right? So there could be certain functions where you want to make their lives easier. Typically, our customer service. Most of the time, we neglect the feedback given by the customers, right? So today, also when I call one of my let's say the insurance companies, I need to wait for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes 40 minutes, right? So how can I? So this is a customer centric ROI, right? So there has to be some kind of a tangible benefit or an intangible benefit which should go for. It need not be obviously always saving the cost or take out cost and all, right? So it could be customer centric. It could be certain qualitative benefit which you could get. And simple use cases could be like, typically you have a lot of these HR policies, organizational policies, which are kept in certain repositories. And as a user, when I'm, let's say, even raising a claim, when I went to, let's say, Florida and came back, I need to understand that what is my per diem to raise a claim and all, right? So today I'm searching in those thousands of documents. So with the onset of Gen AI, some of these low hanging fruits we can touch. We can rather obtain or some of these, right? So we don't need not have a very quantitative number associated with an ROI, but some of these internal organizational related processes, we should be able to get benefit upon. So
Mhm.
yeah, so that could be one of those. And then the other could be typically, let's say, that there are certain challenges which I face today, right? Today, let's say, even in Teams, when I'm going and searching, right? So how can I search a chat? Because I'm having this conversation with this colleague for last 2 years, I have got that whole chat in my Teams, and then this person sent me a document 6 months back, right? So thanks to the some of these Gen AI capabilities, we should be able to integrate with saying that, okay, I need to search. So my contextualized search and some of those aspects can be brought upon to some of the daily tools which I use in my day-to-day work as such.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Georgie, how about you guys? What do you look for regarding ROI or what's that return?
Well, first of all, right, so there is a very well-established methodology for of business justification, right, for technology projects, right? So when introducing new technology, when introducing change to existing technology, Gen AI or not, right, so you will have to calculate something, right? So you will have to see whether this will bring impact, which is of sufficient scale, right? So that's number one thing in this is there on the surface, right? If you want to be more scientific, right? A lot of the business case is has quite a lot of assumptions. Let's face it, right? So if you want to be more scientific about establishing impacts, really calculating the impact, right? So you can employ a variety of the business experimentation techniques. Let's say team A uses existing tool, team B uses new tool, right? So the delta, right, is the impact, right? So that's the simplistic way. In fact, in the world of Gen AI, so there are at least a few kind of studies like this that I found on the internet before. So I think one of the study was the New Zealand bank was deploying Gen AI in their programmers, and the programmers started to be 40% more more effective. Right, so they have like a really nice paper. Another paper that is out there establishing the ROI is the study that Harvard Business School did with BCG, right? So where they employed the Gen AI in BCG consultants, right? And noticed that consultants started produce consulting assets a lot quicker with Gen AI and of higher quality on average, as well as higher perceived quality. So that is a massive ROI, I would say, interesting thing is that the quality was lower in the quantitative tasks, right? So you should not be asking Gen AI to do your math for you, right? So this is the important learning. But other than that, so the ROI was not in question. So it was amazing, right? So and this is something that's everybody who is interested in Gen AI should look on the internet, right? So these are very well-known case studies now.
Very good. So I have a couple of questions here that all have the underlying theme on, how important the framework is, creating or adopting that AI constitution, if you will. So I'm going to kind of merge a couple of these questions together. And Bill, I'm going to start with you on this. I'm going to read the questions, but you'll see that there's a similarity across all of them. So the first one is, how do we ensure security of data or information in the policy when utilizing AI for documents, analyzing the view of sensitive nature for some of these documents? Okay. And then another one is, as Gen AI use cases become more mainstream, do you feel enforcement regulation structure to control the data, algorithms, and computing would be needed? Right. And the other one is talking about the frameworks needing to be right for Gen AI to work. So you can kind of see it's all put together. And I expect the answers to be a little bit more lengthy here. But Bill, I'll start with you. Can you kind of give us your thoughts on those, please?
Well, I don't consider Gen AI any different than any other data governance aspect that you have within your organization. We've tried to have a policy that will include that because Gen AI is just a version of regular AI. You always have to make sure your respective privacy is met. And it is respective privacy because what's private to one group is not necessarily the same as to the other group. So there has to be some flexibility in there, but it all comes down to your data governance structure and how that is flowing through your organization. If you have poor data governance, you will never do this right. And there has to be some teeth in it. And you have to have the ability to have people who can step back and be completely objective. Right? It's all the new shiny toys are great, but everything comes with a risk. So your data governance, along with your chief risk officer, your chief IT security officer, all those people have to have a hand in it. But quite frankly, it should, if you're doing it correctly in the first place, all fit within your current policy. You shouldn't need a separate Gen AI policy because it's just a path in the road of life.
That's a great answer. Dorji, how do you feel about that?
I generally agree, right? So that Gen AI fits very well into from the technical perspective, right? It fits very well into existing IT and security policies, right? Gen AI, as you know, is mostly utilized through the cloud providers, right? Unless you host your own Gen AI, of course, right? So, but most enterprise users are utilizing existing cloud providers, and of course, when you're using cloud technology, right? So you need to have a security policy, data security policy, right? In fact, in XXL, right? So in X group, right? So we do have it's public information, right? So we do have the so-called secure GPT, right? So which is our own instance of the very much loved the GPT chatbot, right? So specifically preventing anyone seeing any information that our employees put into the chat, right? So this is a baseline, right? And this is a baseline of the IT operation generally, right? There is additional aspect to that is because the Gen AI has the AI or smart aspect of that, right? So I think that fits very well into existing model governance, right? So you do train when you use the model or you train the model, right? Ideally, you understand the implications of the model decisioning, right? And same applies to Gen AI, right? Is that when you use Gen AI, do you understand the implications of using models generally? If you don't understand implications, this is a problem, right? If you think it's going to be correct all the time, this becomes a problem for you, right? And this is why model governance exists to begin with.
Very good. Madhur, how about you?
Yeah, so I would like to add some more color to what both of them mentioned. So typically when we engage into any kind of implementation, right? So there are a couple of guardrails which we need to start with, right? And so when the automation or RPA days a decade back when it was new, right? So there was a need to form a automation COE. So likewise, the organizations are forming AI COE, and as Will mentioned, all these CXOs have to be a part of those AI COEs because they need to then define the guardrails of the Gen AI solutions which they are building, right? So that is one part. Now, as an organization, I can choose to go with a GPT or let's say a OpenAI based approach, or as an organization, I see that there is a risk, even though the data is not going out, but you never know how these models are working internally. So as an organization, if I have decided that no, none of the data should go out, even there is a API call also, it should not go out of my organization, then we need to have, let's say, partners like EdgeVerve or some of these niche skill set related platform providers who can basically have a platform oriented approach where you can just configure saying that, okay, I will use a open source based, let's say, a Llama model, which I will host inside your environment, inside your client environment, and nothing will go out. You basically start customizing those, you use those and all, right? So nothing is going out. So you need to have strategies to make sure that the data security, the PI, PHI data is taken care of, the guardrails of the solution is taken care of. And then you have these levers, or as in Dorzi's word, right? So you have these hammers which are available. So how big is the nail you want to hit? Accordingly, you basically bring out some of the best of the breed techniques to implement some of these platforms or tool sets as such, right? So that is one part. The other part is basically how we can stitch together the data which is sitting in silos, right? As I mentioned already, right? And will also mention. So how we can bring everything together to make sense of those use cases or the solutions which you are trying to implement, right? So there again, you have different techniques, different tool sets to take care of bringing this data which resides in silos, because it's all about the context, how I can get the context of the user, what the user is looking for, how, and to the best of the data driven decision making ability, how I can use some of these capabilities to deliver that aspect as such.
I love it. I love it. Madhur, I keep looking at you and I feel like you're the human version of Chat GPT. You've got like all this information and it's so good. And I feel like you could just share so much with everyone. It's fantastic. I love it. We have another question, actually a couple more questions here. So let's talk about how Gen AI can improve the ability to underwrite. And I know we had some differing opinions there on our prep call. We had this kind of come up. But Dorji, I'll start with you on that. What are your thoughts on how can it help us underwrite better?
I will revert to my original comment, right? So in the immediate future, all right, so we think that I personally think that Gen AI can help us integrate data better, all right? So better data, ultimately, when you use it correctly, flows all the way through to better underwriting, all right? So you have more data, you have more ways to do analysis, you have more insights, right? So this ultimately flows into better underwriting, better connected data, right? So I think this is this is opportunity that is immediate, that is immediately before us, and we should all be engaging in it, all right? Maybe in medium term, right? So we are talking about multiple years as the AI is becoming a bit more mature, and we all become a little bit more mature in thinking about AI, right? So we will think about the kind of specialist assistants to underwriters, right? So that use the very well prepared data that we already invested in, right? To be the underwriter's assistant. In my view, a little bit kind of further away in the future, right? So, but you can see how even today's technology, right? So when you start pushing this to the extreme, when you start pushing it a little bit further, right? So ultimately can result in experience like this, right? So when you have a smart assistant to do to help you with your underwriting tasks. So I think I would point out the immediate and a little bit future opportunity here.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Love it. Bill?
Well, Gen AI in and of itself will not really help underwriting other than, once you get to a true natural language state, allowing them to ask better questions, right, that can get answered. But when it's coupled with the transparent information that's going into what I call the old school AI, right, to help gain insights, that's where it will be very powerful, because the machine doesn't know what it doesn't know, and that's what the human's for. The human can make those connections, and with a great feedback loop between the human, the Gen AI, and the regular AI, you will get some powerful improvement in underwriting. So you need it there as a piece, but you always have to remember, it's a language machine. It's not a loss machine. So you need to understand the analytics coupled with the words.
Good, good. Madhur, any thoughts there?
Yeah, so again, I'll add to what both Will and Dorji mentioned. So see, today in underwriting operations and with the underwriters, there's a lot of noise which exists on their work desk. So instead of spending time in making quality data driven decisions, they are actually working to see whether the details are available with them, or they are going back to the broker and asking for some more details and all of that, right? So there is information available, but it is not provided in one as a single pane of glass view to the underwriters as such. So that's where we can use Gen AI to collect all this information, right? Make that particular case which has come for review or that policy which has come for underwriting, qualify it whether it is in good order or not in good order. Accordingly, they can act and help the underwriter take faster data-driven decisions. So as of now, as Dorothy mentioned, it is more of a recommendation. It's more of a co-pilot, right? Where, as the name suggests, right? So it is helping the underwriter take more faster data-driven decisions, right? So that's where we see the Gen AI related capabilities helping the underwriters. Because if you look at the knowledge with Will has, I cannot replace Will, right? But let's say Will tomorrow recruits a new, let's say a fresh underwriter, a junior underwriter. So how we can make that underwriter come to almost the same level in a faster, you can say, training period as such, right? So that's where we want to use Gen AI related capabilities, more of a co-pilot as such.
Yep, I love it. I love it. That synthetic agent. I love it. Okay, we have several questions and only less than 10 minutes left. The time has just flown by. So we are going to do like a game show, speed round. If you guys could keep your answers to 60 seconds or less, I would really appreciate it because I'd really like to answer these questions. So first of all, how long does it take to train Gen AI on your organization's data sets? And let's include third-party data there too, please. Bill, you're up.
It depends on the use case that you're looking for. I was actually just at a conference where the whole project took 10 years for one company,
Wow.
but at other times it can only take 3 months. It's use case specific, and the idea is you have to know what you're trying to get out of it. You can't just throw everything at the wall. It's, you've heard me say it a lot: use case, use case, use case. That determines everything.
Mhm.
ROI, time, expectations.
Yep. Love it. Dorji?
I would point out the use of language here. So train is probably not the language I would use. In most organizations do not train their own AI models, right? So that's the feature of today's state of Gen AI. So when only technology giants train AI models, large AI models. So, but to make your AI work for your organization, right? So you need to expose it in the right way to your organizational data, right? And this is the use case specific, right? You do need to prep your organizational data, right? And you do need to direct AI to consume that organizational data in the right way. This is a little bit of a technology project, but depending on the scale, this could be either very quick or it could last quite a long time.
Great. Madhur?
Yeah, so 30 seconds on that. So typically in the traditional AI approaches, we are training the model, right? Now we are training the prompts. So the whole effort is to do a more smarter, faster prompt engineering as such. So it takes couple of days to couple of weeks to answer, let's say, to create a prompt which we are working for to define the use case, right? So it really depends on how complex is that question which we are trying to ask the LLM as such, right? So that's where we need to spend time. And then this whole orchestration of how you can optimize the prompts. If I just load the 100,000 pager set of documents on LLM, it will keep it needs very high infrastructure, right? So it's not cost effective. So how to make sure that you are smartly using some of these prompts which are available, some of the embeddings or some of those chunks which you are sending, right? So it's both on prompt engineering and how you ask the question to LLM. So it takes a couple of weeks to a couple of months. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. All right, we're going to shorten our answers to about 40 seconds or less. Bill, I'm going to start with you. Can you talk about few use cases in insurance claims management?
Insurance claims management?
Yes.
Claim notes. The claim notes are the best thing to train on from a large language model perspective, because that I've seen it in the industry. That type of usage can help you identify the huge claims, take care of claims that you don't ever have to touch, right? Where a photograph will be enough. There are so many use cases just derived from the use of the claim language. That's for every insurance company who has claims.
I agree.
Right.
I agree. Dorji?
Yeah, same here. Extracting underwriting insights from claims, picking up the risk drivers using Gen AI.
Yeah, and Madhur, you have any thoughts here?
Yeah, so typically in the solution space, we look for classifying these different types of claims. So there are use cases in classification, then extraction, as they mentioned, and then the recommendation and summarization. So those four as such.
And I'm not on the panel, but this is where I live. I live and breathe this every day. So there's a lot that we're seeing here, even like video to structured text. Taking, say, healthcare providers, taking a lot of the responsibility off their shoulders with their documents and getting it into the claim file. There's a lot of different ways that you can touch the insurance claims management piece with just the external ecosystem around it. So I'm always happy to talk through that stuff. Like I said, I live and breathe that. Okay, would it make sense to make AI open source for collaboration, which may reduce hallucinations? Bill, go.
No, that won't happen, mostly because everybody has their own secret sauce. And you can't, you can use certain things as open source, but at one point you want to have your own secret sauce.
Gotcha. Dorji.
Well, AI today, a lot of AI today is open source. One of the best models out there, Llama, is open source, and that market has specifically been addressed to destroy the market of models. So there is no capital in this place, right? So in terms of how you use this open source technology in-house, right, in how you adapt your internal data to be consumable by this technology, is your secret sauce, right? That's your competitive advantage, right? And you should not be sharing it with others.
Gotcha. Madhur.
Yeah, I agree with Dorsey. So we can pass on this one. Yeah, I should not make it.
Okay, an overwhelming consensus there. So, all right, where in claims fraud detection can we use Gen AI capabilities?
Oh, well,
Bill,
that's
sorry.
whether you're going to use it for phone calls, use it for pictures, use it for written statements. There's a plethora of ways that it's currently being used today. I mean, as I said, there are some companies who are currently doing this, and they're cutting edge. They've streamlined process. Now, the machine can only do so much because you have to prove fraud. So you also have to be careful. There's that fine line between assuming something could be fraud and proving it could be fraud.
Interesting.
So
oh, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, that's all.
Okay. Dorji?
I would say that you can employ Gen AI to produce better data from your fraud data, right? From your claims data, right? And that better data can be used to train new fraud models and to score your new fraud models. So the fraud model is becoming more powerful, right? And you catch more fraud.
Yep. Good. Madhur?
Yeah, so we can use Gen AI to basically identify from the previous patterns that, so when these events were either correlated or mutually exclusive, there was a fraud detected at a later stage when the audit happened. So you could use Gen AI to start predicting based on the historical data and then feed the current set of risk profiling or fraud detection models as such.
You've gone a long way when you start predicting the items that haven't been fraud yet. That's what you really need it for, because criminals are inventive.
They are. We see a lot of photos where, I mean, you can use Gen AI to say, okay, I need a photo of a bathroom with water on the floor, and then if it's not enough, they'll say add a little bit more, do this, and those are the photos that you're getting. It's fascinating. So Madhur, I'd like for you to give me about 60 seconds of, again, thank you for helping support and make this possible. Tying everything in that we've talked about today, can you share a little bit more about your solution and where you see it being helpful?
Sure. So in fact, when we talk to our clients, so as Will also mentioned, so we talk about the use case, we talk about the ROI, and then we get into a quick POC kind of a mode to prove that the technology works. And then we get into the pilot mode, and that's where we get into the production related data. And that's where we get into more of orchestration of how the platform can basically build those different components, bring all these components together, right? Because it's all about data. It's all about getting data from right set of systems. And typically in insurance and underwriting operations, you are also dependent on these third-party data providers. So how you can create a partner ecosystem which can basically orchestrate and tie all of these loose ends together. And then in context of a specific persona, let's say an underwriter or a reinsurer, or let's say a operations persona, how they would use this data. So the platform then gets into more of a intuitive, user-driven, human-in-the-loop techniques, right? Because we should amplify the user more as part of what they are doing today, right? So improve the cost of operations, improve their top-line growth. So in fact, some of our clients, we are able to achieve that using the platform capabilities, where they are able to take faster data-driven decisions and the right decisions, right?
Thank
So
you.
that's where basically we have this platform coming in together.
Very good. Very good. Thank you again. And I'd like to express my appreciation to everyone here for taking time to share your thoughts and insight experience with the entire group. And over to you, Alex. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, Robin, and thank you very much, everyone. I'll keep it very short. Just a big thank you to Bill, Dorji, and Madhu for taking the time to speak with us today and share their perspectives. Robin, thank you very much for collaborating with us and making this all work. And of course, a special thanks again to EdgeVerve for partnering with us on this one. So, wishing you all a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon, I hope.
Have a great day. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.